Beware of the Animals by James Allan. Chapter 1. Did you know that animals can talk to each other exactly the same way humans do? It may sound like barking or roaring or meowing to us, but to the animals it's just like talking in plain English, only with slightly different accents. Not only do they talk to each other, but many of them try their best to look out for one another. That's not to say they all do this. Take the lions, for example. They like to eat other animals, so are widely disliked amongst the other species. The same can be said for the crocodiles and alligators. These predators aside though, most of the other animals will tend to look out for one another. Sometimes they need defending from other animals. However, most of the time, sadly, it is from humans. Many humans act kind and loving towards animals, but unfortunately there are just as many who are cruel and evil towards them. Over the years, this has actually helped the animal kingdom to get along with each other, and in time they began to strike back against the humans. Now, it might not be in the kind of way you'd imagine, and you may well have fallen victim to a certain animal's act of revenge towards you and not even realised. You see, they are very clever in how they go about it, and because they all work together, it probably won't be the animal that you mistreated who carries out the revenge mission. This helps them to hide the real motive for the attack, and therefore keep the humans from realising the animals are working together. Have you ever heard your mum or dad complaining about the newly cleaned car being covered in bird poo? Or worse yet, a bird poo has landed on your head, or someone you know's head. Has anyone you know stood in dog poop? Has your pet hamster ever chewed up the carpet? Or has your pet dog ever chewed up mum and dad's slippers? Well, if it's a yes to any of these questions, then you or someone you know has probably upset an animal. You might not even be aware of it, and sometimes it will only be a little trivial issue that your pet wants to address. However, if you're really bad towards an animal, then you better watch out, because they'll be planning their revenge, and as you'll find out in our story, you wouldn't want it to be you they're after. Chapter 2. Zoos are often the scene of many an act of mistreatment towards animals. Not by the staff, I might add, but by obnoxious visitors who do all sorts of things and think there won't be any repercussions. Well, after reading this, maybe those visitors will think twice next time they're at the zoo, which is where we begin our tale. Archie the ape was in his usual spot, an area of the enclosure that caught the afternoon sun but was also right next to the pool. He basically lounged in the sun until he was too hot, then he would roll over into the cool water and refresh himself. He was just pondering whether to dip a toe into the water or not when he first spotted the human child walking towards the viewing glass section of his enclosure. The boy was rather large despite his youthful age, and his belly rivalled that of Archie's himself, and hung right out of his ill-sized t-shirt. His face had a sneering look about it, and he had snot dribbling out of each nostril, which didn't seem to be bothering him one bit. He had a large candy stick in one hand and a soft drink in the other, and as soon as he reached the enclosure the drink was dropped and his sticky, sweaty hands started rubbing and smearing all over the glass. His snotty face was also soon pressed against the glass just to be even more disgusting. Now, as horrible as this sounds, Archie the ape wouldn't act out purely down to someone having bad personal hygiene, even if it did annoy him. However, this child was not about to stop now. A lot of humans are not happy when they come to watch the animals and find they are just relaxing as Archie was. No, they want to see the animals in action, be it fighting, playing, eating, or generally anything, as long as the animal is active. Hence the snotty, sneering child was not amused at Archie's lack of activity, and soon began to let his feelings known. "Do something, you stupid ape!" shouted the obnoxious child. Archie ignored him as best he could and continued to chill in the sun. Next, the child began to bang in the glass, despite large signs right next to him telling people not to do this. Bang! 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 Thudded his smearing, sweaty, sticky hands off the glass. "Do something, you fat, lazy ape!" continued the screaming child. Really? Thought Archie to himself as he sat up and looked across at the boy with one eyebrow raised. He watched the child's large belly wibble-wobble against the glass. "You've got to be kidding me. This guy's calling me fat. Can you believe that?" said Archie in disbelief. "Yeah, I have to agree with you there, Archie. That's a pretty big insult coming from that kid," said Sal the seagull, who had landed in a large rock near Archie after coming over to see what all the commotion was. "Oh, hey, Sal," said Archie. "Just another day at the zoo, I guess." Now, behind the glass, to the untrained eye, all the snotty child could see was Archie making loud grunting noises in the general direction of a seagull that had landed nearby. "Oh, he's going to eat the bird," said the snotty child to himself excitedly. "Eat the bird! Eat the bird, you stupid monkey!" he then yelled at the top of his voice, startling half the animals in the surrounding enclosures. "Oh, so you're a monkey now," chuckled Sal. "Eat him!" "Jeez, does this guy ever shut up?" said Archie. At this point, the snotty child was losing his temper, and just as he reached boiling point, he moved away from the glass a few steps, leaned back, and then launched his candy appy with all his might. It felt like slow motion as Archie watched the spinning candy apple fly up and over the high enclosure wall, then come tumbling down towards him, before landing right on top of his head with a horrible thud. Chapter 3. Poor Archie let out a huge roar, which sadly delighted all the human spectators, who in turn all began to whoop and holler. "Are you all right?" asked Sal, but it fell on deaf ears as a now furious Archie had leapt to his feet and had already covered half the distance towards the enclosure's glass wall. The snotty kid wasn't hanging around though. He knew what he had done was wrong. Not that he cared, but he just wasn't going to hang around in case anyone else had noticed and he found himself getting in trouble for it. As Archie reached the glass wall, he was now the one banging on it, yelling for the snot-faced child to come back and apologise. As the child walked away with his equally obnoxious parents, he paused to turn around and sneer and laugh at a clearly unhappy Archie. "Come on, Simon," called out the child's mum. "The sea lion show's about to start." Simon then stuck his tongue out and rasped at Archie before waddling away after his parents. Poor Archie was now not only infuriated, but he was also being blinded as all the other humans eagerly snapped away at the chance to get a rare picture of an ape going wild. With all the cameras flashing away, poor Archie had to shield his eyes before turning around altogether in order to protect them. "Come on, Archie, move away from these vultures," said Sal, who had flown over and landed beside the large ape. Archie looked down at his winged friend and nodded sadly. As he began to walk away from the glass wall, Sal said, "Don't worry, Archie. He's not getting away with that. I heard where he's going next. Leave it to me, buddy." Sal then launched himself into the air and began flying off to see Leo the sea lion. "Thanks, Sal," shouted Archie as he waved goodbye to his friend. Chapter 4. Simon, the snot-faced child, had just pushed his way into a front row seat at the sea lion show. The small girl he had just squished had been so disgusted at his uncleanliness and unhappy at being rudely pushed out of the way that she had burst into tears and was now being consoled, sitting on her mother's knee. This, of course, was of no concern to Simon, as he now had what he wanted, and that was all that mattered to him. However, it was then that something strange happened. As he was impatiently waiting for the show to begin, a large seagull flew into the enclosure and landed on the edge of the pool, right beside the sea lion. Now this isn't really strange at all, but as Simon looked on, he could have sworn that it looked like the seagull and the sea lion were having a conversation with each other. Then, both animals suddenly turned their heads at the same time and looked straight at Simon. He began to feel a little nervous as the two animals continued staring at him, before finally the bird leapt into the air and flew away. At the same time, the sea lion ducked back under the water, much to the relief of Simon. A short while later the show got underway and Simon soon forgot about the strange encounter. The show's finale involved a child being selected from the crowd, who was then pulled around the pool in a small boat by Leo the sea lion. When the show host asked for a volunteer, hands shot up all around the crowd, including Simon's. Being his usual obnoxious self, he was not content with merely raising his hand. He began shouting at the host too. "Me! Pick me! Over here, you! Are you stupid? I'm over here! Look, you stupid man!" The host could hear the snotty-faced child very well, but had no intention of picking him, since he was being so rude and obnoxious. Therefore, he was doing his very best to ignore Simon. But then another strange thing happened. Leo the sea lion suddenly popped out of the water and began to shuffle his way towards the crowd, and in particular towards Simon. Once Leo was right in front of him, he began to grunt and nod his head towards the boy, instructing the host to pick him. The host looked on a little stunned. He had never seen Leo get out of the pool to pick someone specifically, and so, despite him wishing Leo was not choosing a snot-faced child, he couldn't possibly say no to him. Begrudgingly, and to the delight of Simon, the host announced that he would be the one to star in the show's finale. Leo shuffled back into the water to get ready as Simon was helped into the little boat. Then, on the host's instructions, the finale began, with Leo pulling Simon around the pool. Now, most other children would have been happy just to have been chosen, but not Simon. As he was being pulled around the pool, he took great delight in sticking his tongue out and rasping at all the other kids in the audience. "Ha ha! The stupid seal picked me, not you!" he shouted to them. However, just then the boat slowed down before almost coming to a halt. "What's going on? Where's that lazy seal?" shouted Simon. As the host looked into the pool, wondering himself what Leo was doing, he noticed the sea lion had let go of the straps he was pulling the boat with and was now diving towards the bottom of the deep pool. "Where's that stupid seal? Get me out of here!" demanded Simon once again. "He's a sea lion," replied the irritated host, "and he's about to help you out right now, I think," continued the host as he watched Leo speeding upwards from the depth of the pool, heading straight for the little boat. "What?" started Simon with a puzzled look in his face. But before he could say any more, Leo struck the bottom of the boat with a loud bang, and Simon was suddenly sent flying up and out of the boat before landing with a large splash into the cold water. Too lazy to ever learn to swim, Simon managed to splash around a little before disappearing under the water. As soon as he did, though, Leo caught hold of him and began pushing him towards the edge of the pool. Upon reaching it, the sea lion used all his strength to lift Simon and send him flying out of the water, where he landed flat on his large belly. The audience couldn't believe what they had just witnessed, and had been stunned into silence. So, as Simon slowly got to his feet, you could have heard a pin drop around the arena. As his bottom lip began to tremble, the first person he noticed in the crowd was the poor little girl he had pushed out of her seat moments ago. Only now her tears were gone, instead replaced with a large smile. The girl then raised her hands and began to clap. This seemed to send a signal to the rest of the audience, for as soon as the little girl began clapping, so did everyone else, especially all the other children at whom Simon had shouted and stuck his tongue out. Soon the whole arena was cheering and clapping and laughing at the obnoxious child. Just then Sal the seagull flew by overhead and sent a little package tumbling towards Simon. A moment or two later, a plop landed on Simon's head. Wondering what it was, he raised his hand and felt around. As he brought it down to inspect it, he horrifyingly realised it was bird poo. He could hold it in no more, and finally Simon burst into tears just as his parents waddled over to him and began to coax him away from the pool and the cheering arena. Chapter 5. Later that night, Archie the ape couldn't stop laughing as Sal the seagull filled him in on the events that had taken place at the Sea Lion show. "Thanks a lot, Sal, and tell Leo thanks too. That's one I owe you both," said Archie. "Hey, no problem, Archie. Any time," replied Sal before he flew off and left Archie to relax, safe in the knowledge that snotty Simon had got what was coming to him. And now that you know what happens when people are bad towards animals, you can't say you haven't been warned. Be nice to animals and they'll be nice to you, but be cruel and you'll probably find yourself in a spot of bother soon enough. The end. Thanks for listening to my story. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, please hit the like and subscribe buttons. It's free to do so, and this will keep you up to date with every new James Allan story as soon as it is available. Once again, thank you for listening, and goodbye for now.